Welcome to MyCounselor.Online. I'm Tori, and this is Asking for a Friend. In today's video, I'm going to be sitting down with licensed therapist Alison Pitts to answer one of your questions about the essential parts of a healthy relationship. Keep watching. Emily asks, what's the difference between the core essential parts of a healthy relationship and the extra things you should compromise with?
I think that is such a good question. I think that, I love that Emily is thinking about that. I think that shows that her head and her heart is definitely in the right place. I do think that a big part of, as I think about this question, I kind of think about it in two categories. Like there's the category of kind of dating, exploring that part of your life, getting to know people, kind of what are my values, what's important to me, what am I looking for? And then I think about it kind of a few years into marriage or right away into marriage, like kind of progressing through a relationship, like, wait, if these are my values and this is happening, where do I give, where do I stretch, where do I flex, and what does that look like, right?
Totally. And there's so many things that you discover even in those first few months of marriage that you didn't know before you got married. I'm experiencing that right now as a newlywed.
Of course, yeah. It's I think so many people experience that, Tori, where they kind of have an idea, right? I think we all kind of have an idea of who we are and what we want. And then as we kind of put boots to the ground, right, where rubber meets the road and some of those moments and dynamics, you get to this point where you're like, oh, wait, what does that actually mean to want this or to believe this? How does that actually play out? How do we flesh that out in real life? So I think that's such a good question. And where I always like to start in questions like this is just knowing yourself, right? Knowing who you are in Christ and what's important to you. Because if I don't know me, then I'm going to be really disconnected from the things that are important to me, right? And so I think that's number one. And have those conversations with yourself, especially if you're in that first category of starting to date, starting to get to know people, starting to maybe look towards a committed relationship, marriage, to really sit down with yourself and say, what are my deal breakers?
Right. So what are some, practical ways to even kind of start that conversation with your, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, how do you start that conversation? Because it can be an awkward situation, right? To be like, hey, these are my deal breakers. So how do you kind of start that off? And what are some practical ways to work through finding that common ground and compromising?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think what I always encourage is just a tone of curiosity, right? A tone of curiosity with your partner around what that is, right? Again, step one is knowing yourself, knowing what you think, knowing what you want, knowing what is important to you. And then the step two, when you're bringing those up, it can be even something as simple as, hey, I've been really thinking about these issues for myself. I've been really thinking about kind of what I want in this area, whether that's, what family looks like, whether that's faith and spirituality, whether that's finances, parenting, like those bigger issues that kind of feel a little bit more core in relationships. To just gently say, I've been thinking about these things for myself. This is kind of where I've landed. I'm curious if you've thought about that or where you land on some of those issues. Right? So having just that really open-mindedness.
Absolutely, yeah. And those can be such like hot button issues where if you say it in the wrong tone or say it in the wrong way, it can explode way bigger than it was meant to.
Yeah, which we don't want that. And that's very rarely our intention when we're bringing those up, right? It's usually just wanting to dive deeper or wanting to get to know that person better, right? Or even just process and explore with someone trusted and safe.
Right.
That's a big part of it too.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned, values and specific morals and stuff, are those kind of the difference? You know, would the difference be, for example, you know, what you believe about God versus what kind of sandwiches you prefer? You know, is that kind of
Yeah.
the difference there?
Yeah, I think that's something that I would definitely put in that non-negotiable category, that deal breaker category. At least for me in my journey, that was something really important, is like what my deal breakers are: faith, right? Making sure that we both believe the same God and believe the same things about what living that out means, right? And then family is a really big one. What are our long-term goals with that? What does that look like for us in our life? And other pieces of that, and how that looks, and kind of falling in line with that. Like, I'm not going to worry as much about who's doing the dishes or who's doing the laundry. That's not a core value for me. I don't care, right? Like, it matters, but we're going to be a team and high five in the middle and figure out what compromise looks like for us in that. Whereas faith, like, I can't compromise with that. Right?
Yeah.
That's not something that I'm, at least for me, and I really do feel like there's a lot of commonality in those, but that we do find that there's a lot of differences. There's somebody who's like, you know what, this is really important to me. Like, we need to both be savers, or whatever else. Or there's other couples where maybe that isn't quite as core for them. So again, it goes back to really just knowing who you are and what's important to you.
Yeah, that's really good. And Emily, I hope that answered your question. I know that was helpful for me to think through. Thank you so much, Allison, for just sitting down and being intentional about answering kind of a broad question that is probably a different answer for everybody.
Yeah, of course. I think it's a great question. And I, again, love that that's where her head's at and that's where her heart's at. And just encourage her to keep exploring that and kind of testing that out for herself, and really just noticing and paying attention to what's going on in her heart if some of these things are new. Really paying attention to, if I step out in this, or if I move this way, what happens in me, right? And to let that piece inform kind of where her boundaries are, where her lines are. So it's so good. That's such a good journey to go on.
Thanks for tuning in today for Asking for a Friend. If you have a question for one of our licensed therapists, you can ask that at MyCounselor.Online/ask. And if you liked this video and want to see more, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time on Asking for a Friend.